unique. Anyway, tonight I want to talk about what you're applying for, how to apply, get your questions answered, and contact information up there. That's my direct phone line. So after tonight, if you're not sure of something, please give me a call. I'll be happy to help you. I know from these past presentations I've had calls from Hortonville and the other places I go, Beaver Dam and Lord's Academy and Oshkosh. But please call if you have a question, because how many of you will this be the first time you filled out a Fafsa, the free application for federal aid? So the majority of you. And I'm guessing there's some veterans in the crowd. You're going to be volunteering to help them. How many veterans do we have? We got one veteran, two veterans. All right, so it's a relatively new crowd. The one thing that's going on with the Fafsa this year is a total redesign that I think is going to make it easier for families to file. And I'm going to show you that tonight of the redesign. I've not actually seen it live yet. We'll come live on October 1st when you can start applying. So tonight we'll understand the financial aid process, learn about the programs, learn how to apply, and get your questions answered. Financial aid is there to help you pay for college, family, pay for college, and provide a gap, or provide gap funding between what you can pay as a family and what the school costs. So this is a mutual agreement between the school and the family to pay for school. It's for the student, but it's based on family resources, and it's there to provide continuing support for 4 years or 2 years, however long the student's going. It's available at all public, private, and technical colleges. Say that with a grain of salt. There are some out there that are not eligible. There's some proprietary schools out there that are not eligible for financial aid anymore. Okay, here's the process. And it begins on top where you fill out the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, with a focus on free. If you get into a website, there's a Fafsa.com that you get into, they will charge you $85. You're doing the same thing, but this is a free application. The Department of Education has taken some steps on Fafsa.com to make sure you know this is a paid for site. It's not Department of Education free system. So keep an eye on that. So you fill out the FAFSA online, send it in, you submit it, and it goes to a central processor that takes it through a federal formula that will come up with an expected family contribution. Focus on expected. Based on what you put into the FAFSA, a formula is going to determine what you would be expected to pay. Doesn't mean that's exactly what you're going to pay. It could be lower, it could be higher. But it's an expected fair share contribution. All right. When you fill out the FAFSA, you're going to be able to choose up to 10 schools to have the information turned over to. Once we get it, we'll follow up with requests for information. For example, the federal government selects 30% of the applications for a federal verification process to make sure that the application information you're providing, mostly income, is accurate. And there's a way to not have to go after a tax transcript within the FAFSA. It's called IRS Data Retrieval Tool, where you can get your information from 2017 and bring it over. Once the school gets it, you've already been notified of what your expected family contribution is. We know what it is. We collect documents, and we make a financial aid award. So once you deal with the federal government in the application process, you begin to work with the schools that you've released your information to. If you released it to 10 schools are going to be notifying you. Release it to 1 or 2, only 1 or 2 schools will notify you. Okay. Once the application is complete, then an award letter comes out that you can decide what you want to do with it. We'll talk about that as we go through. All right, financial need. If I ask you how Do you have financial need? You're all going to say, yes, I have financial need. In the world of financial need, or the world of financial aid, financial need is very specific. So the school's cost of attendance, which varies from public to private sector, technical colleges, the price varies. What doesn't vary is the expected family contribution. If you are calculated to have a $5,000 expected contribution, it's good at Madison, it's good at Ripon, it's good at one of the technical colleges in Wisconsin. That is your financial need. The cost of attendance includes the tuition and fees that the school charges. And that by far is the largest variable in this picture. The tuition at UW-Madison is about $11,000. At Ripon, the tuition next year is going to be about $44,000. All right? State supported, private. Doesn't mean at Ripon you're going to pay $44,000 because we have fairly significant scholarship programs and resources to bring the cost down on that tuition. Room and board is a standard item. That's going to vary by school, but not as much variation. Transportation is going to vary. Books and supplies and personal living expenses. That's the cost. Those are the tuition and fees and room and board if you live on campus. Those are called direct costs. The next three are variable costs because you'll have control over those. How many times you travel home during the year. Books, you can buy them online or rent them. And so you have there's a lot of variability in the books. Many students are renting books because if you buy them outright, they're pretty expensive. All right, expected family contribution. Quickly. Parents going to report information, turn it into a parent contribution. You're going to put in your latest tax information from 2017. Notice I didn't say 2018, the upcoming tax season. This is going to be income. Your expected family contribution is going to be based on the tax year 2017. So in the Fafsa, you're going to report income. And then you're going to report assets. And I'll define those later. Student does the same thing, income and assets. Student contribution. It goes through the federal formula, federal methodology, and generates an expected family contribution. And as I said before, it's the same for all schools. Here's won't spend a lot of time here. How does this work? So on the left-hand side, you got private four-year college with a cost of $42,000. The expected family contribution is $9,500. The financial need is $32,918. Private four-years is a little bit different. Their cost, $18,000, almost $19,000. Subtract out the $9,500, the financial need turns into a little bit under $10,000. Technical school is going to go even lower. $11,000, $9,500, the financial need is $1,552, right? Now, this doesn't mean much to you now, but there are many, there are financial aid programs that are based on financial need. The easiest one to describe, there is the federal direct loan program, okay? And it has two types of loans within the direct loan program. There's a subsidized loan where the interest is not paid by the student, nor does it accrue on the student's account while they're in school. That's a need-based loan. There's also unsubsidized, which means the student's responsible for that interest while they're in school. They do not have to make payments on the interest, but it does accrue on the amount owed. So at a private four-year, chances of getting a subsidized loan are high. Public four-year, pretty much can get that. You get to the technical college, you're only going to get $1,552 of subsidized loan in that scenario. Types of financial aid, scholarships and grants do not have to be paid back. Hopefully your son or daughter or your student in the crowd, you've already begun looking for scholarships at the school that you plan to go to. Signed up for FastWeb. There's resources here in the high school to look for scholarships. That's free money. Grants are free money. Loans have to be repaid. Work study, you have to get a job on campus, work for it, and get a paycheck. Sources, federal government, one of the primary sources. First thing you're applying for is the federal Pell Grant. Next year, we haven't figured out what the government has not determined yet what the highest level of Pell Grant is. This year it's $6,025. Pell Grant is portable. Regardless of the school that you're going to, if you have eligibility for Pell Grant at one school, it's good across all the schools. In most cases, there's some variation in there, but pretty much a $6,000 Pell Grant will go from a private school to a UW school to a technical school. There's a supplemental educational opportunity grant that the schools control. In most cases, if you're Pell Grant eligible, students also are going to get some form of supplemental grant from us. It's a federal grant. Next one is a Teach Grant. So students that are planning to go into teaching after they leave can qualify for a Teach Grant. Not all schools have this. Large schools or schools with a teacher education program may have tapped into this money. This is one, though, that buyer beware, because this is a grant/loan. All right? If you start taking out a Teach Grant and you're under education, you go into teaching and you decide, hey, I don't like this much, it turns into a loan. Or at the end of the 4 years, the student teaches, they hate it, they never start teaching. The money that they've gotten in Teach Grant now becomes repayable to the federal government. So be careful of that loan. And if you're going into education, it's great, or the grant. Son or daughter is going into education, perfect, but they need to be totally committed at the time they receive that grant. State grant. There's the Wisconsin grant that Wisconsin residents are eligible for, whether it be a private school, a UW school, or technical college. There's a Wisconsin grant. The amounts of the grant vary because each sector determines their own formula. That we have a budgeted amount for each sector, and then the sectors determine how best to spend that money. For example, public or private schools in the state, the maximum grant this year is $3,200. UW school, it's about $2,400. Technical school, I'm not sure what the amount is, but this is all determined, most of it is determined based on expected family contribution. The higher your contribution, the less eligibility you're going to have for grants. With a maximum Pell Grant of $6,000, $6,025, your expected family contribution can be roughly $5,400 and still qualify for a $400 grant. So the EFC determines eligibility of who gets what. There's also a talent incentive program that the Department of Public Instruction will come from high school to high school. I don't know if they've come to Hortonville yet or not, but they identify qualified students for that and nominate people. Schools in Wisconsin do have the ability to nominate TIP recipients, but we have very little money. Most of it's controlled by the Department of Public Instruction. Wisconsin Indian grants there, minority grant, academic excellence, the valedictorian of the class, one with the best grades will get that. You have one or two at Hortonville. Probably two. You have four? Three, okay. Four, yeah, three, okay. So 3 students can qualify for this through how the high school determines eligibility for it. And this grant, academic excellence grant, can be used at any Wisconsin school that's participating. That's pretty much all the privates, all the publics. technical colleges, does it work there at technical college? I'm not sure if it does or not. But it's a $2,200, $2,250 for the year. And then there's the Wisconsin Hearing and Visually Handicapped Grant. All right? These are all determined in many cases on the expected family contribution. Okay? Institutional grants. This is where I think pretty much every college, university in the country has some type of scholarship program. The privates by far give greater amounts of scholarships. All right, publics have them, and we have endowed funds that we provide. Publics have endowed funds. We at public college or privates bring down the cost through tuition discounting. All right, so we have a formula of how we discount our tuition. So those are things that you need to check in to. Talked about the loans already. You may have heard about the federal Perkins loan. It died at the end of spring last year, and there's still talk that it might come back, but this was money that the schools had, federal money, that we could lend to the students, and the students would pay us back, and then we'd lend the money again. It's a revolving account. That's been eliminated. I hope it comes back. But who knows what Congress is going to do with it. These loans, the direct student loans, repayment begins after the student leaves school. Interest rates are low. I think at 5.05, that may be wrong. They reset every June. So by next June, I know that this last year is 4.5, both for subsidized and unsubsidized. Credit is not required. These are totally non-credit based. It's financial aid. Cosigner is not required for the federal direct loans. Uh-oh. There we go. Sorry. Okay, parents, you can take out a direct parent plus loan. It's a non-need based loan, so every parent, if you've applied, you can apply for the Parent Plus loan, take out what you need, or not necessarily what you need. It's the cost of attendance minus what the student's getting. You can borrow the rest if you choose to do so. Interest rates on these are about 7%, and there's a 3.5% origination fee on them. They're very expensive loans. There is a credit criteria on it. The Federal Direct Plus loan looks for adverse credit only. It's easier to get a loan through the federal government this way than going to a bank. So if you have credit issues, you can't get a loan through a bank, you may be able to get that as a Federal Direct Plus loan. If you're denied for that, the student can get additional unsubsidized loan. I forgot when we talked about the federal direct loans, incoming freshmen can get up to $3,500 of subsidized loan and a total of $5,500 with an additional $2,000 of unsubsidized loan. Okay? There are also private parent loans out there, which if you have really good credit, you can go out and beat the plus loan hands down because there's typically no origination fee. The interest rate is going to be better than the Parent Plus loan, direct, the federal one. And students can also get private loans, but they need a cosigner. Ever since 2008, students 18, 19 years old need a cosigner to get these loans. Prior to the Wild Wild West days of 2008, before, they didn't need a cosigner. And then all the proverbial stuff hit the fan, and there's no lender out there that will provide non-cosigned loans. So these are choices that you make as you're looking at how you're going to pay for school. Whatever loan's up there, except for the parent loans, well, the student loans can all be deferred until the student leaves school. Parent loans, the plus loan, you typically start 60 days after the second disbursement. So if you take out a loan for fall and spring, disperses in fall, then it disperses in January, 60 days later you go into repayment. However, parents can get a deferment on that loan as long as your student's in school, but you have to request that. So there's a lot of different variables to these loans. There's not enough time to get into each one, but just give you a flavoring of what's out there. Student employment. Self-help form. Doesn't matter if the student has financial need or not, they can work. There's a federal work-study program that does require financial need to get it, but there's also institutional work-study where the institution will hire the student and provide them a paycheck. Part-time employment on campus. I've got work-study students in my office. The admissions office has probably 20 or 30 students working. Students in food service, athletic department, with the Wilmore Center now on campus in Ripon. They're taking care of the front desk, checking people in and out. So it's a job that typically students can work 10 to 20 hours a week, earn a paycheck. Highly encourage your son or daughter to work on campus, not off campus. On campus. If they work less than 20 hours a week, they're in good shape. Students that work off campus tend to have a problem with their academics because their time is being spent somewhere else. If they're working on campus, working's a pretty good deal. Students do have to put their hours in to get a paycheck. Okay, any questions up to now? All right, moving right along. How to apply. Free application for federal student aid. I'll refer to that as the Fafsa the rest of the night. To qualify for the federal, state, and in most cases institutional aid, you have to fill out a Fafsa. This has to be done. Some institutions, mostly private, will require an institutional application. And they are going to ask different questions than what's asked on the FAFSA because they're going to dig deeper into family resources. I don't know what the split is between how many just use FAFSA data and how many use FAFSA data plus institutional data, collecting more information from a non-custodial parent, say. Typically, the private school with high selectivity, in other words, they're picking up the best students out there. They're the ones that will control their money much more and dig deep into the family resources before they provide financial aid to the student. Okay, probably can't see this, and I think Laura, you're going to have this on the website where they can adjust the screen to read it. First step in the FAFSA process. Veterans, do you have your FSA ID? Do you have yours? All right. The FSA ID is required for one parent and every student that's going to file the FAFSA. What the FSA user ID is a electronic signature, or how many people do online banking or bill pay. Okay, you do that. So what you do to start that right is you log into the account, or you set up an account, create a user ID and a password. This is no different. Okay, first step. You can do this right now. So I don't know if you can read this or not, but down below, the website is https://FSAID.ed.gov. Easier to go is to go to fafsa.ed.gov, and they'll direct you to the Create FSA User ID. Okay? So you can go out there right now and fafsa.ed.gov, create FSA ID, or you can change it as well. In order to get the FSA user ID, students, we'll just talk about the students, need to have a email address that's a non-high school address. Because at the end of senior year, what happens to that high school address? gone, right? So they should be getting a Gmail account, a Hotmail account, whatever account they get, that's their own. Do not use a family email address. Student needs a unique email address. Okay? Parents, Parents, you need your own unique ID. If you want it to be a work account, fine. But keep in mind, you're not working there anymore. You're going to lose that email address, and then you're going to lose your communication, and it's going to get real messy to try to get in there and correct data in the FSA user ID. All right? So that's where it starts, is entering an email address. And then you confirm the email address. Then you create a user. Now, you don't need to be real creative with your user ID. It can be Dave99 or just Dave. Actually, it needs to be, if you're going to put in Dave Woodward, it has to be something other than Dave99. So just come up with some easy way to remember it. Name of your dog, Bilbo99. Okay? Password is going to have character requirements, length, and that's where you want to get real secure. All right? So create your password. Now, you'll go through the process and answer the questions. You will put in your address, you'll put in phone numbers, you'll put in cell numbers, and during the process, they're going to ask you to do an email verification. All right? So they will send you a 6-digit verification code to that email address. You get the 6 digits, you go in there, you put that in there, and continue. You've now had your email address verified. Then your email address actually becomes your user ID. I don't even know what my user ID is anymore. I know what my email is. And and they change the passwords about every 2 or 3 months. It's really annoying. But it takes less than 60 seconds to reset it if you have your email address verified. You say, forgot password. Okay, enter email address. Next thing is, give me your 6-digit verification code. You're back in, create your new password, and you're up and running. It's the same thing for the parents. The thing I want to stress about the parents, if you have more than one child in school, you only need one FSA ID. The student needs a unique. So the FSA ID is the starting point. You can go home and do that tonight. How many who have not filed a FAFSA, how many of you done that so far? Anybody? Okay, you're ahead of the game. Getting ready for next Monday. Okay, but it's relatively easy, but don't overthink it. Just think that you're creating an online bill payment system. All right, any questions about this? This is really important because we have so many families that have problems with this. Okay. All right, so you get your FSA ID, it's good for life. First step is using it to fill out the FAFSA. The FAFSA starts with the student logging in. The student logs in, not the parent. Parents, you're going to use the FSA ID to do data retrieval and sign the FAFSA, but it's in the student's name. Had one family this year, they filed late. We're on the 8th transaction because Dad initially used his FSA ID to get in, bombed out, then used daughter's, but had his name still in the FAFSA, along with his Social Security number. It was a mess. So if you're having problems initially with the FAFSA, call me, because I can save you a lot of time in most cases. All right, the next step, you fill out the FAFSA. When the student or you as a parent can apply for a Parent Plus loan, studentloans.gov will also recognize the FSA ID, and this is where students, if they're going to borrow, are going to complete entrance loan counseling. I'll say this with some trepidation. one time, but there's a bill in Congress to make students do entrance loan counseling every year, which is not going to be, not only going to be a pain for the student to do, but the schools are going to have to track it. And if you don't have that done, you don't get your loans. So that's something I'm glad I'm going to be gone next year, because it's just going to be ridiculous. And the students then also complete a master promissory note. And this is a legal agreement that says, yes, I'm going to take out the loan. These are my rights and responsibilities. At the end of the time, I will pay it back. It's only done one time. Entrance loan counseling takes about 25 minutes. Master prom note takes about 5 or 10. After school, or even during school, there's the National Student Loan Database System. This is the system that keeps track of all the federal loans the student takes out, or if you're a parent, what you've taken out. This is going to be, again, the FSA ID lasts a lifetime until they come up with a different mousetrap. But this maintains an up-to-date record of all loans taken out. It tells the student where their loans are being serviced by, who the loans are being serviced by, their national servicers. So if there are contact or questions about the loans, the contact information is there. Same thing for the parents. Phone numbers, addresses, and if you're getting letters from somebody saying, well, we own your loans, you can actually double check that on the National Student Loan Database System. This will show all accrued interest on loans as well, current balances, etc. So the FSA ID is just not for the Fafsa. Any questions? Okay. All right, fafsa.ed.gov, free to file. You can file 3 different ways. FAFSA on the web, which has been in existence for, they brought it out in 1995, I believe. It was horrible the first 3 years because batches of FAFSAs were getting lost every day. Families would call 6 months into the time, or 6 months after they filled out the FAFSA, and they'd be asking, where's my financial aid award? And we'd say, where's your FAFSA? So the first 3 years wasn't so good. Since that point in time, FAFSA on the web has been very reliable and also secure. There's a new system coming out this year, My Student Aid mobile app, which I'm going to tell you right now, stay away from for the first couple of years. I would not use it. And it's part of my pessimism about new applications, especially when you're providing the level of data you could be providing. I would stay away from the mobile app for now. Let it prove itself. For you folks that do not like computers, do not electronics, you can still file the paper FAFSA. All right, there's nothing wrong with that, except it's going to take a lot longer to get it processed. A good 6 to 8 weeks. So, FAFSA on the web, very reliable, very safe. I'd highly recommend it. Okay, so you get out to the website, and this has been a total redesign of the website. So a lot of this stuff is new information for me as well, because I have not seen it live yet. So you're going to get a choice. New to FAFSA.gov, start here. It means you have no FAFSAs on file for the student. The returning user, so this would be the student's second year. You click on returning user. And FAFSA on the web, log in, you say I'm the student. And they got this one, or I'm a parent, preparer, student from a freely associated step. So you want to put the student, you put down I am the student. All right, do not log in with FSA ID if you are not the student. This is coming from experience with FSA ID. As parents, stay out of it. Let your son or daughter at least start it. So the student's going to put their FSA user ID in or their email address that's been verified, and then they're going to put their FSA ID password in. All right? And there's also forgot password. So if you forgot the password, you wrote it down but lost it, you can do a reset right now. Have the 6-digit verification code sent to the email address. You're in less than 60 seconds. And of course, they're going to give a disclaimer and use the site properly, blah, 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 blah. And you want to accept that. There's going to be another trick in the road. It's going to say, for which school year are you applying for financial aid? Because we still have students applying for this school year, 2018-19. I've already received at least 3 FAFSAs for the 18-19 school year for a student that's starting next fall of 19-20. You want to use 19-20 FAFSA. Forget about 18-19 unless your son or daughter is going to have an early start in the spring. 18-19 goes through June 30th of this year. After that, it's all 19-20. Save key. This is a very nice feature of FAFSA on the web. So, students in, parents are helping. When you're doing this, create a save key, which basically means that you can start the FAFSA, and if something comes up, you can stop the FAFSA. Your data's been saved, you log back in, you use the save key to get back in, and you'll go exactly where you left off. Very nice function. I typically, if I were doing this for myself, my save key would be Dave. It doesn't have to be anything fancy because you've already logged in with a secure login. Make the save key easy. Okay, student information. This has general information about how many steps does it take to complete, how long will it take, what documents do I need, etc. If you want to open that stuff up and look at it before you dig into the FAFSA, you can do it. Okay, student information. Now, because you got the FSA ID, a lot of stuff's going to be pre-filled out. They'll pre-fill it because you've logged in now. The student is logged in under their FSA user ID and password, where you've already provided demographic information, date of birth, social security number, address, phone numbers, email addresses. It's already also been verified that you are who you say you are, because it goes through a social security match. All right, so it's pre-qualifying the student before they even get into the FAFSA. And the same thing for the parents. When you get your FSA ID, you're going to be going through Homeland Security, Social Security, all the database checks that occur in this process. That's going to be pre-filled. You just want to check to make sure it's correct. Your address will be there. If you want to change your address in the FAFSA, you can do that. All right? So you just want it, because you're always in the school address, you can use your school address for now. As long as the FSA ID is an independent email address, Gmail or something like that, you're okay. But you can change it within the body of the FAFSA. Okay, so they got the state question. This is a dummy record. Your state is Texas. The state of Texas wants to know whether or not the students lived in the state of Texas at least 5 years. You're going to have the same type of thing with Wisconsin. Answer yes or no. Male or female, telephone number, driver's license number. You don't have to have one there. So if you don't want to put in a driver's license number, that's fine. And the same thing for the state. Marital status. Student single, married, divorced, separated, whatever. You put that in there. I'm guessing most will say, I'm single. Are you a citizen, U.S. citizen? Or U.S. national? Answer yes or no. It's also going to give you a prompt about males have to apply or register with Selective Service. The FAFSA can be a registration device if you check the box, register me. Son might be 17 right now. Not required until they turn 18. The FAFSA will automatically register the student if they're given permission to do so. So the question, are you registered with Selective Service? Go on, student information. It's asking what your high school completion status is. In most cases, it's going to be, I'm a high school graduate, but it could be a GED, it could be homeschooled, anything else. So they ask the student their grade level. Most students coming out of high school are going to be first year never attended, even if you were part of the Youth Options program. First year never attended. Youth Options is a different program. Those college credits transfer. First degree, this is where I've run into a lot of problems this year. Students coming into a 4-year program, they're saying they're going after a certificate or a 2-year degree, and they may have released their information to a 2-year school or a certificate school. So keep an eye on what schools are the student applying for. Is it all 4-year? Then putting, I'm going after my first bachelor's. And then the next question is, will you have your first bachelor's before you begin the 1920 school year? I'm hoping in most cases it's going to be no, because if it answered yes, it's going to knock out all grant eligibility. There's some basic questions here. High school or education completed by the parent. This has some bearing on whether or not the student will be TIP eligible for the state of Wisconsin. There's also another program that sometimes is funded, sometimes not, Gear Up. It's also looking for first generation students, first generation going to college. There's also, are you a foster youth, or were you at any time in the foster care system? Yes or no? We're leading up to whether the student reports parent information or not. So we have independent student questions. All right, this eligibility worksheet, it's going to ask you if you ever received federal student aid. Typically you're going to say no. Eligibility worksheet is the drug question that's been around since the Reagan era, back in the 80s. Have you ever been convicted of selling or using illegal drugs? If you answer yes, there's a worksheet you're going to have to fill out. In most cases, you're going to answer no. Okay, so up to this point, the application has been successfully saved. You can leave, go have lunch, then come back in, use your save key, and get back into the FAFSA. In this case, you're going to verify the high school of attendance. So in this case, you're going to put in Hortonville High School, city, state, and you're going to get a confirmation of whether or not that school was found. That verifies one of the eligibility requirements, that students have to be a high school graduate or equivalent to get financial aid. So now you're going to select colleges, and within here, you can either use the school code or you can do a search for the school. So if you don't know that Ripon school code is 003884, you can put in no. That's going to give you a prompt for name of college, city, and state. And it's going to go find all the colleges in that city or state. And like I said, you can put up to 10. So here, you found this, University of Houston, federal school code's there. Then you're going to indicate whether or not you're going to be living on campus or off campus. And trust me, the way this is being presented in the FAFSA now is much easier than the past. These are short bite questions. All right, so it used to be you'd have a page long of answering these questions. Now they've broken it into shorter bits because that's what the consumer, the student, 18-year-old, 19-year-old, that's what they're used to. short bits of questions. So now we're getting into the independent status questions. Students have to be the age 24 or greater before December 31st of the award year to be considered independent, age 24. If they're married, and this is not necessarily a way to become independent by getting married at 18, I would not recommend that. Graduate programs, most are not, that's not going to apply here. So the status of independent. This is another way not to become independent as the 18-year-old is that you have children other than, do you have children you support? Legal dependents. So you're going to keep answering this. Are you a veteran of the armed forces? You have to be on active duty for something other than training. So National Guard, Army Reserve, Navy Reserve, you do not qualify as a veteran. Here's a question of, are your parents dead? Are you orphan? Award of the court? So those are some other things that makes a student independent. Emaciated minor, homeless students have been kicked out of their home and they have nowhere to go. High school counselors can help because there's a homeless designation, or homeless shelter can designate someone, and that can become part of the Fafsa to make that student independent. Hope in most cases that's no. I'll do one thing to say, and this is where Lori comes in and everybody in any high school counselors come in. Student is in unusual circumstances. There's been a total breakdown in the family relationship, or the student has left and gone live with grandma or something. The financial aid office, we can take a look at the situation based on the notes from the high school counselor and make that student independent if we believe that the situation warrants. What would warrant it? There's been physical or emotional abuse that could be documented. What wouldn't be warranted is an 18-year-old person that doesn't like family rules and just decided to move out. There's no breakdown in the family other than student does not like rules. So we do have the ability to do that. And it's individual to the school. What I would deem as independent, another school may not, and vice versa. Okay. Answer the questions. If all the questions are no, student's dependent reports parent information. They check down, I will provide information about my parents. The check I am unable to provide, the school is going to follow up with that student and say what's going on. Okay, so this is where we're getting into the parent information. It's going to be very different, or it's going to be the same between parent information and student information. So I'm going to go through this. We've got 20 after 7. It's probably going to be about another 10 minutes or so. So you're going to, marital status of the parent, married or remarried. Widowed parents, you report about yourself. Divorced, separated parents, you report about yourself if you're the person that the student has lived with most in the last 12 months, or you provided the greater amount of support. FAFSA does not look for non-custodial parent. Okay? If your parent's divorced and then remarried, the step-parent becomes part of the FAFSA. So we're looking at statuses. All right, and then we're going to look at the date of marriage or the date of separation. Got to provide a date. And at least one parent needs to be put in here. Last name, or social security number of the parent, students, or the parent's last name, first initial, parent's date of birth. And that's going to be used for matching. It's also going to make your FSA ID valid when you sign. It's going to look at that. All right. Household size. So when you fill out the FAFSA, part of the formula is how big's your family? So you have mom, dad, the student, and 2 brothers. Family size of 5. And this will take you through the instructions on how you figure this out. 2 students are in college seeking a degree. 2 in college, so 5 and 2. It's going to come up with a different formula versus 5 and 1. Because typically a family of 5 with 2 in college, you get an EFC of 10,000. Well, 5 and 1, you get an EFC of 10,000. EFC with 2 is going to be approximately 5,000 each, which will increase the eligibility odds for some of the grants. All right. Now we're going to get into the tax information. Most of you have your 2017 tax return on file. All right. Have you filed an amended return? All right. So the data retrieval tool should work, and I'll show you some exceptions of why it won't work in just a couple screens. So you've already completed the FAFSA for 2017. You put your tax filing status, married filed jointly. Did your parents file a Puerto Rican or a foreign tax return? You'd answer no. And right at the bottom, link to the IRS. So you're going to get a message, you're leaving the FAFSA on the web, and you're going to the IRS. And it's going to identify this as a United States government system. And to use the IRS data retrieval tool, you're going to have some information pre-filled out. You have to have your correct street address in there. It has to match exactly. All right? And once you put that in, you submit. And you're going to see your tax information come up. Transfer my tax information. Check that box. It lights up the one next door. Transfer now. You hit that. And that information is coming over to the FAFSA. It's very easy. Okay? Very easy. But to do that, the parent, you have to use your FSA user ID and password to get over to the IRS website. Certain tax filers cannot use. You didn't indicate that the FAFSA of tax return was completed. Marriage date is January 2017 or later. If you've just recently got married, that's not going to work. First 3 digits are 666 of the SSN. Filed a non-U.S. tax return. Married and filed as head of a household or filed separate returns. So there's situations where the data retrieval will not work. That's in your slides. This helps a lot because if your application is selected for verification, if we have a good IRS data retrieval in the FAFSA, we don't have to ask for a federal tax transcript from you. All right, and then you're going to get the information. The tax return everything's been transferred, and it's going to show you what has transferred. So here's a question with how much did your father earn from wages, working wages, salary, tips? It shows transfer, so you have to work about that. Asking questions about, was an IRS Schedule K1? I don't even know what that is, but it's going to take you through this step by step. It's going to ask you whether or not you have any type of income. Student's going to go through the same process, but it's taking you through step by step by step. Child support. Other untaxed income not reported. So those are things, and that's where some people will get hung up. And there is a help screen up here if you need it built into the FAFSA on the website. All right, you're going to be looking for assets. So we've got the income. Now we're looking for assets. And let me say, if the data retrieval doesn't look, then you're going to have to be looking at your tax return and manually put in the stuff. All right. So this is going to show, you're going to be reporting this. I'm going to make it, it's going to be easy. This is going to be easier than look at the FAFSA. Assets to be reported. Money in a savings account. stocks, bonds, money markets, CDs, undergraduate gifts to minors, trust funds, investment real estate, and then qualified educational benefits. Those are parent assets. So if you have a 529 Cloverdale or EdVest or something like that, prepaid tuition, you report it as your asset, not the student's. It's still in your name. Biggest thing to look at of what you don't report. You don't report your primary residence, the net worth of that. You don't report life insurance policies, retirement plans, you don't report, so the cumulative value of the 401k is not reported. What would be reported earlier is what did you put into that retirement plan during the year, during the current year. And that comes out of your box 12A through E or something like that. That's the amount you would report as untaxed income. Small businesses, small farms, family owned, whether it's an immediate family member or brother, sister, cousins, whatever. If a family owned, less than 1,000 or less than 100 employees, small businesses, the net worth, and the farm net worth not reported. That's where I get a lot of questions. Okay, so you've gotten through the assets. You're going to go through the student section doing the same thing. And then you're going to get into the signatures. And this is where we have major issues. The student signs it because they logged in. And what they do is both parents need to sign. So you're going to go up there, student first. You're reading the conditions. I, the student, agree to the terms, agree, and then hit next. And what happens is the parent forgets to sign it. They have a lot of rejects because parent signature is not there. Parent does the same thing. Agree, submit. Now you're getting everything signed electronically because you've used the FSA ID, you're all done. And then other options to sign and submit. You want to sign before you get to here. All right, then you're going to get a confirmation page and you want to print this. It's going to show you what your EFC is. There's a data retrieval number there that if you haven't released information to a school, but now you want to release it, you can use that data retrieval number and give it to the school. The school can go fetch your Fafsa. So this is just showing you information. You're going to get an email notification that says you can go out and look at your student aid report and look at a summary of data you provided. Here's your student mobile app. I'm going to skip over to that. School response to the FAFSA is we're going to send an award letter. And you can choose whether or not you want your loans. Your grants you're not going to turn down, but you can choose, pick and choose your loans and work options. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here because I've talked about it before. Special circumstances. Start working with the financial aid office if you've had change in income or you have major medical expenses. Verification, if you use the data retrieval tool, it's going to be pretty easy, but we do have to verify information. Contact the financial aid office with any questions. Don't get up to 12 transactions, don't get up to 12 FAFSA transactions and then call us. We can probably take care of it in one. Okay? This really isn't an issue anymore. Apply early to meet college filing deadlines. 2017 tax return. Keep a copy of your records. And with that, it's question time. And ran over a little bit. It's 7:30 right now. I'll take any questions that you have, and I'll be here after we stop. Yes, ma'am.
You went through everything nice and simple and quickly, but I'm a little foggy on at what point the student's logged in and at what point you're logged in, or does it constantly switch back?
You're never logged in. The parent is never logged in.
It's always through the students.
You're a writer. A writer. You log into the IRS, But when you come back, the student's still logged into the FAFSA. So the student is driving the process. You have to use it to sign it, use the data retrieval tool, but beyond that, the student's still in control of that FAFSA. That make sense?
But I still need an ID for myself.
Yes, you need that to sign the FAFSA. Okay? Other questions? Yes, ma'am.
When you said at the end you would get your financial aid package.
Mm-hmm.
Under the grants on that, you have web addresses. Do you have to file for the program or anything else?
No.
Separately, or is that all under the FAFSA?
All right, so when I was showing you types of federal grants and state grants, no, you do not need to apply there. There is no application process there. The application process is the free application for federal student aid. The financial aid office is going to take it from there. Now, in some special cases for Native American grants, for minority grants, visually impaired, that's something that working with DPI, and when the counselors can give you information on that, the Department of Public Instruction, that can be a separate process that they're going to need FAFSA data. But the majority of what I talked about tonight is driven by the FAFSA, and the financial aid office will determine what your eligibility is. Okay, but you don't have to be applying for 100 different pieces. Other questions? Okay, well, thank you very much for your patience, and I will be up here if you have some questions you really don't want to answer or ask in front of the crowd. So, thank you.